Okay, we're here today at the Veterans Memorial Center in, what city is this anyway? Merritt Island, right, correct. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, and my name is Carlton Cartwright. I am the Executive Director for the Children's Coalition Incorporated. And let's see what is clear. Reset. Bingo. Okay, and we are interviewing, sir, what is your name?
Warren Thiers, Thiers.
Okay, Mr. Thiers. And when is your birthday?
May 19, 1931.
Okay. And where were you born?
Pardon me?
Where were you born?
Where?
Uh-huh.
Plainfield, New Jersey.
Okay, all right. All right, and let's see. What branch of the service were you in?
The United States Navy.
Mm-hmm. Why did you choose that branch?
Because it's the best branch.
Okay. Where were you when you went in the service?
I was living in Asbury Park, or actually Neptune, New Jersey.
Okay, all right. What were you doing before you went into service?
Golly, I don't remember. I not much of anything because I was only 17.
Oh, okay.
I'd just gotten out of high school.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I never completed high school.
Uh-huh.
I quit high school in my senior year at Christmas, and I got a GED in the Navy. That's General Education Development High School Equivalency Diploma.
Right.
And then when I got out, I went to work, but I ended up going to college. I was working at Bell Telephone Laboratories, and they paid all my tuition and everything. So I went back to school at what at that time it was Monmouth College in West Long Branch, New Jersey.
Okay.
It had started. Monmouth College has started out as in a high school, Long Branch High School, as a extension of the high school, and then it became a junior college, and then it became a college, and today it's Monmouth University.
Okay.
And I have a daughter that just retired as a professor from Monmouth College.
Uh-huh.
She was in charge of all the part-time IT instructors. So
Okay.
it's amazing how one thing leads to another.
This is true. Okay. What was your rank when you separated?
Sonarman second class.
Okay, when you finally came out of the service, huh?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So why did you join? Why did you go into service?
Why?
Yeah, why?
I don't know. I've never thought about that. I was strictly Navy, and there were three of us, the three guys that hung out together in high school, and we all quit high school. Well, two of us quit high school, and we were all going to join the Navy, and we hitchhiked up to Newark, New Jersey to get to see the recruiting officer, and then on the way back we were picked up by the Air Force recruiter, and one of the guys got talked into, instead of the Navy, going in the
Air Force.
into the Air Force, and the other guy finished high school and joined the Marines. I was the only one that ended up in the Navy.
Okay. All right. Okay, where did you serve?
Mostly in the Atlantic, the Mediterranean. I did a 6-month tour, or my ship did, in the Mediterranean, but mostly what they call BBF, Be Back Friday tours out of Norfolk. Our home base was Norfolk.
Okay.
And I served mostly the Atlantic Ocean. I been up to Greenland. I've been Gitmo, down through the Caribbean, anti-submarine patrol, close into the United States during the Korean War, and when we were out at sea with the convoys, and not convoys, a task force.
Right.
A carrier. In other words, they put a carrier and then surround it with a bunch of ships, and we were what was called plane guard. We would be on the starboard quarter of the carriers when they had takeoff and landings.
Right.
So if anybody that went into the drink, we'd pick them up.
Oh, okay.
So that's called a plane guard.
Where did you, where was basic training?
Oh, Great Lakes, Illinois.
Oh, okay. How long was it?
About 3 months, I think.
How was it? How were your instructors? How were you treated?
They were excellent. I have pictures today of the company. I was in Company 100, in 1949, Company 100, and there were about 6 guys from New Jersey in there, including one from Seagirt, which was the next town over. And but it was good.
Okay. After basic training, where did you go to tech school?
I went to Key West, Florida, to sonar school,
Oh, okay.
and it was the first sonar maintenance course. First time they ran it, and I was in the first class that graduated from maintaining sonar equipment. It used to be the electronic technicians took care of the sonar gear.
Okay.
It was basically used to be just an amplifier to listen to underwater sounds, and it'd ping and get an echo off the submarine, but it was all audio, all with your ears. And today it's all visual. You don't listen to it at all. It's
How long was the training?
it was a 6-month school. It was a Class A school, and I got sick and had to drop out of my class. So I was in the class that followed because I got sick. I've forgotten why I got sick, but they put me in the hospital, and that dropped me out of that class. I couldn't keep up with the class. I was out more than a week.
So what happened after that?
I went to Norfolk, got on the USS Dyess, D-Y-E-S-S,
Right.
the DDR 880, and I got onto that ship, and I stayed there for more than 3 years, almost 4 years. I was on that one ship,
Right.
and when I got out, I was going to get out, the Dyess was going over to the Western Pacific, and the long way down around the bottom of South America, and it was going to be a 6-month tour, and I only had 2 months to go, so they transferred me off of the Dyess onto another ship that was in dry dock in Philadelphia.
Okay.
That was the USS Dyess, or no, USS Healy, and I think it's DD 672 is the number that comes to mind. I don't know offhand.
Right. So you how did you you're saying that was the end of your tour? That was your end of your service?
Well, I enlisted for 3 years.
Right.
And I was so good that they kept me for 4.
Oh, gotcha.
The Korean conflict started while I was in the service, and they extended everybody's enlistment. They wouldn't let anybody get out. They were bringing in reserves because they were bringing ships out of, the recommissioning ships and all, and they needed people, experienced people.
Okay, so you were in the service for a total of 9 years.
No, a total of
10?
4 years.
4. But you went in the service what year?
1949, got out in 53.
49, I misread that. Okay, fine. All right, so after basic training and tech school, where did you go after that?
Just to the Dyess, and stayed on the Dyess.
And that was where you wound up in Korea?
Yeah.
Okay, and so tell me about your experience there. Where was the first place?
I never went to Korea. I was, my overseas thing was into the Mediterranean,
Oh, okay.
and the whole perimeter of the Mediterranean, North Africa, Middle East, Greece, Italy, France, Spain.
Okay. Throughout basic training, tech school, and your duty station, so to speak,
Yeah.
in the Mediterranean, were there any casualties?
Pardon me?
Casualties? Anybody get hurt? Anybody die?
No,
No.
no,
Okay.
not on my ship.
No. Okay. All right.
Not due to enemy action at all.
Well, otherwise,
Yeah, not even that.
not okay. No accidents. What was your MOS again? What was your MOS in the service?
Sonar.
That's right. Yeah, you tell. Okay. All right. So, what kind of job was that for you in the Mediterranean? How did that?
Well,
How did you spend your ships?
yeah, well, we were plane guard, basically. We followed around behind aircraft carriers to pick up any plane crashes, any pilots that, were survived
Okay.
takeoff and landing that were sort of hazardous in those days.
Oh,
less so
okay.
than now.
So there were casualties.
Yeah, but they were on the carrier. They weren't
No, I understand.
on our ship.
But yeah, so this because okay, so how did your job or your vessel interact? If you don't mind giving me some details, when these mishaps happen with the aircraft.
We would pull up alongside where the plane was in the water, and we put a boat over the side to pick up the pilot or the crew. Well, if there's more than one.
Okay.
And they would just fish them out of the water and bring them on, and we would go up alongside the carrier, and if they were injured, and put them in a stretcher and highline them over to the carrier, who had extensive hospital medical areas,
Okay.
which we didn't have. We just had a couple of corpsmen
On the ship.
on our ship, and
Right.
a couple of corpsmen and a doctor.
So they had to send them someplace where they could be taken care of
Right,
more efficiently.
yeah.
How often were these mishaps?
I would say one every month, perhaps.
Okay. All right. Anybody cause of death? Anybody die from it?
I don't know. We don't. I was in the operations department, and so I didn't interact with the pilots at all.
Okay.
That was the deck crew, the seamen, the bosuns, and the medical department.
Okay. How was the food?
Superb.
Was it good?
I love the food.
Was it good? All right. All right. So, tell me all of them. Well, okay. So besides, where did you go on R&R, by the way? Did you get R&R?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If you could call Norfolk R&R,
Virginia?
yeah. That's strictly a Navy town. It's not really recreation. I did a 30-day tour of as a shore patrol in Norfolk, and had some interesting things happen there. And the town immediately adjacent to Norfolk, on the other side of the air base, is a town called Ocean View. And I was shore patrol. I was on a permanent shore patrol there for 30 days. And I was walking with this guy that was with me, my partner. He wasn't more than 5'2" tall, little short, skinny guy.
Right.
And we were walking down, and we were walking past the door of a bar, and we saw two guys just pushing each other, and I said, well, this is going to erupt here shortly.
Right.
So we went charging through the front door, and the next thing I knew, I woke up in a hospital bed. There was somebody standing behind the door with a bottle,
Oh boy.
and he clocked me on the head,
Yeah.
and I went out cold, and this little itty bitty guy beat the bejesus out of this guy that hit me.
Right.
And he was in the in the bed alongside me, the guy that hit me.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
that was sort of interesting. Another sort of humorous thing that happened while I was on shore patrol, I was at Granby Street is one of the main drags in Norfolk, downtown Norfolk.
Right.
And they have a lot of bars, obviously, it's a Navy town.
Right.
And there was one bar, and I don't remember the name of it, but it was on the second floor. And there was just a stairway that went up, went into the building and up. And the bar was all on the second floor. Well, we were walking, my partner and myself were walking down Granby Street, and all of a sudden, out of this window, a guy came, boom, landed on the sidewalk right in front of us. And we didn't react very quickly. The guy got up, swearing and cursing like a house on fire, and he ran back into the bar. He was going to go get the guy that pushed him out the window.
Right.
And evidently he didn't get hurt bad because he just got up and went back up to join the fracas.
Okay.
And we just kept on walking. I don't want to know what about it.
I understand.
That
Okay.
was sort of humorous.
Right. Did you get to see any of the cities around the Mediterranean?
Oh yeah, you name it, I've been there.
Go ahead.
Let's see, come into Spain. The Mallorcan Islands, it's a group of islands right off of the east coast of Spain, near Barcelona. We went there. Palma was the name of the city, I think. It's sort of strange. We were very lucky we didn't go to Barcelona. Most of the fleet went into Barcelona,
Right.
the big city. And we didn't go there. They went into Barcelona. Going clockwise, Marseille, France, we went there. Nice, Cannes, a town called Menton, M-E-N-T-O-N. It was right on the border to Italy, between France and Italy. And that's where we went in. The fleet went into Nice and Cannes.
Right.
And we were sort of the outside rim of the fleet, so we went into this other town in Menton. And at that time, and I was a Jeep driver. They say never volunteer for anything, but I volunteered to be a driver.
Right.
We had a Jeep on our ship, and we had two guys that were drivers, and I volunteered to be a driver. And it was the best move I ever made when I was in the Navy, because everybody else would get Cinderella liberty.
Right.
It's to midnight when we pulled into a port, but we got 24-hour because we had 24 hours on, 24 hours off. So we got better, and we would drive every day. They did what they call guard mail, which is the ship's mail. They would take it down to, well, basically it was a post office, and wherever the Navy collected from all the ships in the fleet into one spot and then flew the mail out. And so I would drive from Menton to Nice every day, or every day that I went. That was our main job. And take the skipper to play golf or whatever. We were at his beck and call.
Right.
It was, anyway, let's see, Italy, Nice, or that's not, Naples. That was a big U.S. Navy port in Naples. Right in the bay there of Naples, there, I can't remember the name of the island. There's an Isle of Capri.
Okay.
It was across the bay, and that was pretty. And Vesuvius, is that what's the
I believe.
mountain, the volcano that
Right.
covered up the town? That was right there on the Naples. I was at in Sicily. Oh boy, what's the name of the town? I don't know, I don't remember the name of the town. It's on the west coast of Sicily.
Napoli?
East coast of Sicily.
Okay.
And we went there, and then to Athens, Greece.
Right.
Well, actually, it's Piraeus is the name of the port of Athens.
Okay.
And I have, this was now back in 1950, and you can't do it anymore, but when you go up on that little mountain where the Acropolis, the big famous temple of whatever it is up on the top of the this little mountain thing in the middle of Athens, the granite that they made that building out of was pure white, beautiful stuff. And when I went there, this was now in 1950, there were chips of this granite, chips all over the ground. And I picked up, and I still have, I was holding it in my hand yesterday, a piece of granite out of from the Acropolis.
Oh, okay.
Chip. And
Wow.
now they frown on that. You can't pick it up. Most of it has been picked up and put in museums and things.
Right.
But I had that. And then we went to the Greek islands. Lemnos, I remember, is one of them. I don't remember, there's a couple of them. We went to Turkey. I don't remember the name of the town.
Incirlik?
Hmm?
Incirlik?
It was something like that, but I don't think that was it. And then we went to what's the next country below that?
Uh-oh.
I don't remember. But a couple of countries. We went to Alexandria, Egypt.
Uh-huh.
Went to Oran, which is in North Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Philippeville, which is another town in North Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Casablanca, the port there by Casablanca.
Right.
See, that's about the tour around.
Gotcha.
And over 6 months, we spent a lot of time at sea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Particularly when the war started. Excuse me, it's not a war, it was a police action.
Okay. And where was that? Where was the police action?
That was the Korean conflict.
Okay.
A lot of people call it the Korean War. They were very specifically, that was not a war.
Oh.
It was a United Nations police action.
Mm-hmm.
And we were United Nations troops that fought there. Not American. They were not American. The boss was the United Nations. That was all a good idea, but that was the only worldwide conflict that I've heard of that was just the United Nations. It was a good idea, but it never got rolling.
What do you mean when you say it was a good idea?
Well, like today, look at all the wars that the United States is in
Right.
right now. Several, all at once. And where we are at war, rather than the United Nations, and the United Nations just sits there, you know, shame on you for being a bad guy, but they don't do anything about it. And I don't know, I don't
okay.
want to talk politics.
I understand. Not a problem. Were you ever a prisoner of war?
No.
Thank God for that. Okay. Medals and citations.
Just the service medals, the service ribbons for the Korean conflict.
Okay.
And believe it or not, a good conduct medal.
Okay.
I had that for years. I don't know if I still have it or not.
Right.
But I'm not a hero type.
Well, you did your job.
Yeah.
I'm sure you did. So, you know, good conduct.
I did my thing.
There you go.
I can remember one strange story.
Go ahead.
Right after the Korean conflict started, we were in a port in North Africa. It was a little tiny town near Oran, Algeria. I think it was called Philippeville. I think that was the name of it. And in each one of in our ship, in each sleeping quarters, they had this humongous canvas bag for laundry. And it was 6 foot high and 4 foot in diameter, you know, and the whole compartment threw all their clothes in this one bag. And then they'd drag it up into the laundry to do the cleaning. Well, sometimes I'd pick the bag up and sit it the hatchway. They couldn't go up the normal passageways because it was too big. So they go out, they had all these compartments had one hatch that was big that opened up onto the deck. And they would drag the bag up and sit it on the deck, and they'd get 2 or 3 of them from different quarters on the ship, and then make a big deal out of moving it to the laundry, which opened onto the deck, directly onto the deck. But anyway, we had guards, armed guards on deck whenever we were in port. I don't know who the Koreans were going to come get us there in Africa, I don't know, but that was the procedure. And the guard said he was standing on the deck and this laundry bag started moving. And it was what it was one of these little kids that got there and was dragging the bag. It was going to dump it over the side onto the shore. And the guard said he thought he was going crazy because the bag just started walking across the deck, and he went up and chased this kid away.
Okay.
But that was sort of funny.
While you were on active duty, how did you stay in touch with your family?
Mail, just regular mail.
Right. How was the food?
Very good.
I think I answered that already.
Yes.
Did you have everything that you needed as far as supplies was concerned?
Yes.
Okay, good.
We had no problems.
Did you have any, or what was, stress, pressure?
No, I wasn't involved in the war part of it.
Okay. Well, just in your regular job, was that stressful?
Yeah.
It was
I
stressful.
was a sonarman, and we did our thing. We did anti-submarine ASW tours out when we were, I shouldn't have leaned forward. We did ASW patrols after we got back to the United States, back to Norfolk.
Right.
Because that was when the Russians were starting to sneak around the east coast of the United States and into the Gulf of Mexico. And we did ASW patrols up and down the East Coast and into the Caribbean. And we did chase a couple of subs, but they were good. The Russians, they were Russian subs, and they were pretty good at dodging us. The sonar equipment in those days was relatively primitive compared to what it is today. And it was mostly ears, you listen. And it depended on how good your ears were as to how good your ship performed.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it's no longer dependent on the operator's ears. That's all done electronically now. But,
okay. What did you think of officers?
in general, okay. Before the conflict started, it was all regular Navy, and they were pretty good. But when they started bringing in, they activated all the reserve forces and started bringing them online. Some of them were not very, I remember one Lieutenant J.G. Damon, D-A-M-O-N, I remember him. He was the dumbest, stupidest person that ever walked the face of the earth. Everybody knew it. The skipper knew it. The exec knew it. And what they would do, they would give him a job on a sound-powered telephone on the bridge,
Right.
and just stand there. And half the time his phone wasn't even plugged in, and he didn't know it. He wouldn't even notice that his phone wasn't plugged in. He'd just stand there with the phones on and just stay out of the way, and we'll get along without you. And But most of the officers were very good. For a long time, the the sonar officer, it was an ensign that was in charge of the sonar. He was an Ensign Noble, and his father was a 4-star admiral
Okay.
on active duty, and this was his son, and he was an ensign, and he was my boss, my direct boss.
Okay.
And they brought some, when they activated the reserves, the peacetime complement on our ship was relatively about 200 folks. Wartime complement was 300.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to bring 100. Actually, what they would do, they took half of our people, took 200 people, cut it in half, and left us with 100 regular Navy,
Right.
and then bring on 200 reserve, and the other 100 that was our normal complement went to commission another ship because they were activating ships as well as people. And so we went from 200 to 100 to 300, and that 200 people were all reserves, and they were people who generally served in the Second World War, and they had no idea that they were ever going to go back in the service again. And they had carpenters and you name it, but they were not Navy people, and they didn't want to be there, and they had bad attitudes, and they were terrible. They just didn't want to be there. They didn't know how to do the job.
Weren't happy.
We had one guy that was bigger than my son, and he, in order to get into the sonar shack where the equipment was, during when you were on doing something,
Right.
they closed the hatch. It was there was a hatchway that went down from a berthing quarters. And they'd close it, and it just had this little round scuttle, they called it. It was about that big around that you had to go through in order to go from one deck to the deck below.
Right.
And this guy wouldn't fit.
Okay.
So if he got there before they closed the hatch, he was in the sonar shack until they decided everything was all right, because he couldn't get out.
Okay.
But half the time he would be slow because he was big. He would be slow getting there, and he would just sit in the berthing quarters and couldn't do anything. And but anyway, that's some interesting experiences.
I hear you.
We went to Greenland one time. We were testing. One of our functions was to test new types of foul weather gear.
Right.
And this new type had strings around the cuffs and the neck and the ankles.
Right.
And it sounded like a good idea. It would keep the cold water out if you're on deck. But what would happen is the water would get inside the suit and couldn't get out. So you're walking around like a stuffed snowman.
Yeah.
And so after about 1 week above the Arctic Circle, they decided this was no damn good. We got the old gear out, put that back on, and went about our business. But that particular design of foul weather gear
Didn't work.
did not work at all.
Okay.
And another thing that happened when we got back to Norfolk, when we go into port, one of the things we had to do was send a couple of guys to shore patrol duty, and we would supply them with the armbands and the nightsticks.
Right.
Well, it turns out while we were up above the Arctic Circle, they used to use the nightsticks to hammer on the antenna wires, the ship's antennas,
Yeah.
and to bang on it so that, because the ice would take a wire like that and it would build up 6 inches of ice around it, you know? And you want to get the ice off, because the ice was enough to make the ship top heavy. And they beat on them with nightsticks, and what they did is they took all these nightsticks that were this long and they were this long. When we got back to port, we had to get new nightsticks, so they couldn't send nightsticks with the shore patrol people because they'd wore them all down, knocking ice off them.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So how did you get along with your fellow soldiers? You know.
Good.
Good. Good. Okay.
Good.
Where were you when it was time to separate?
I was on the USS Healy. It was a DD, regular destroyer. When I 2 months before I was due to get out, the Dias was scheduled for a 6-month tour of duty in the Western Pacific,
Okay.
i.e. Korea.
Yeah.
And because I was due to get out, they
Right.
transferred me to another ship. And the ship that I was transferred to was in the Philadelphia Navy Yard. It was in dry dock.
Okay.
So I went on there for 2 months in Philadelphia, the last 2 months I was in the service.
Uh-huh.
So I got out in Philadelphia.
Did you, when you got out, did you go back to school or use your GI Bill?
I never used much of my GI Bill because I was working for Bell Telephone Laboratories, and they paid 100%. So I never had to apply for the veterans stuff. The only veterans benefit really that I got was my first house that I bought.
Okay.
I bought a 4-bedroom house, $13,000.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
And I did that with a VA loan.
Right.
But other than that, I never did much for the VA, except since I've been retired.
Gotcha. Did you maintain any close friendships that you made in the service afterwards?
No, none.
Okay. All right. So what did you do for a living after the war? You said,
I'm an
you just told me.
I'm an electronics engineer.
Oh, okay.
And I went to work as a technician for Bell Telephone Laboratories. And they sent me to college. And I got an engineering degree. I graduated, it was all night school because I was working full time. And I got a degree in electronic engineering. And with 3 majors. I had engineering, physics, and math. And I got a degree in 1969.
Okay.
And that was when I went to work for, well, actually, 2 years before I got my degree, I went to work for Honeywell Incorporated, doing stuff I can't talk about.
Okay. Okay. So in general, your military experience, I mean, thinking about war and military in general, the effect that the military had on your life after the fact, how did your military experience affect you?
Today I am very cynical. The politicians are, I don't want to talk politics,
Okay.
but they're ruining the country. And it doesn't matter, that's it's not Republican or Democrat, it's
Right.
just politicians.
I understand, but all I'm asking you is, how did the military, in other words, how did it affect your life
It
as you went through
made
it?
me,
Yeah.
I think, disciplined.
Okay.
I have a disciplined attitude about things. I guess that's about the best way I could explain it.
Okay. Well, I want to thank
Good.
you.
It was a good
It was
experience.
a good. Okay. So it served you well, in other words.
It served me well.
Okay.
I'm very happy I was in the service. I learned a lot. That's it.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for a wonderful interview, and I also want to thank you for your service.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome.